Hello and welcome to yet another episode of me reacting to fan-made cards I found on the internet. And in today's video I have a few fan-made corporations for you. The first few of which are made by Gerotix, a Redditor, and the first one he made is 80 Pioneers. It's a corporation with a power tag. It grants 48 MC starting capital, 1 power prod, so this is exactly the same that Thorgate grants you. But instead of the discount on power tags that Thorgate gets, you have the ability to once per gen remove your power production by 3 and place a city. In my opinion, this is a pretty weak action. Because let's say you would increase your power production by standard projects, this would add up to 33 MC. Of course, that's completely unrealistic. You would never do that, and it's really inefficient. But even if you increase your power cheaply, this isn't that cheap. So, like power plant, the simplest power production card with no requirements or anything costs 4, and if you buy it in a raft, it costs 7. Let's say theoretically you would play that 3 times, then this would cost 21 for a city without any money production or anything. A standard project, which gives you a city and a money production, costs 25. So this is too weak. I don't want to place a ton of cities because cities themselves have no value. And B, even if I want a city, this is not really cheap. I would definitely lower this to decrease your power production by 2. Then this is actually a pretty good deal. Just getting this amount of map control is pretty nice, but it's still quite weak, and I'd probably let this corporation start off with 2 power prod, which basically gives you the option to immediately lower your power production to place a city. And then I think this corporation is still quite niche because you have to go for a ground game with it to get any use out of the ability. And if you don't do that, then it's just a generic corporation that starts with 2 power prod and relatively low starting capital, like average starting capital, let's say it like that. So you have to go for a ground game. You're pretty limited by that, but then I think the ability would actually be fine, and in certain scenarios that would be okay. But I like the idea. Alternative ways of placing cities is quite cool. I just think it's too weak. But he's got a few other corporations that are definitely too strong, so don't let that one fool you. You get to the next one, and yeah, this would be one of those that's too strong. So first of all, Francis Studios, no tag, starts off with 24 MC, and as your first action, you draw 10 cards. Immediately, no matter what this says, this effect on the right, drawing 10 cards is that's too much. You get to see a total of 20 cards before you take your first action. That's too much. You can't buy all the 10 cards in your starting hand because you only have 24 cash, so you can only buy 8. Can only buy 8 cards, not 10, so you can have a maximum of 18 cards, and then you have no money left. But still, I would reduce this to like 3 cards and give it a little bit more starting capital. The effect that it has is really interesting. Probably this lower part is not healthy for the game, but let's talk through it one by one. The first effect is that you can sell cards for 2 MC each. I think this one's okay if you don't draw 10 cards at the start, because it's just not just the variation of the effect from Terror Labs research, because this will also make card draw much better. Terror Labs research doesn't make card draw better. You just make card buying cheaper. This is a bit different, but if you just if you don't get card draw and you just think about getting cards from the deck during the draft phase, then this is basically the same. Because if you buy a card and don't use it and just sell it later, you just paid 1 for it. But with this corporation, Francis Studios, getting card draw is better because if you get AI Central down, basically 4 MC prod if you always sell the cards. But of course, keeping the cards is still worth more than selling them. But I think this effect is fine. The lower effect is really interesting, but I think it's not healthy for the game. And it is that when other people perform the selling patterns action, so if they sell their cards, instead of them just going to the discard pile, you can look through them and pay 3 MC to get the sold card. So you can just buy the cards that they sell. First of all, this basically makes... I wanted to say it makes cutting cards impossible, but no, it doesn't, because if you cut cards in the draft and just don't buy them, you don't sell them. So this Francis Studio player doesn't have the opportunity to buy them. But let's say you have card draw down, you're playing against someone who's going for Jovians, and you find TG. You have to keep that card on hand. You cannot sell it as the opponent of Francis Studios, because if you sell it, he can just buy it. Of course, you could wait until he runs out of money at the end of the gen and then sell it, because then he can't buy it. It just limits your actions, and I don't think this is healthy. I just limit it to the upper action, because I think this is fine. Give it a little bit more starting capital and reduce the amount of cards here. Of course, this would make the corp more generic and less interesting, and you could actually just try it out like this, but I think it's a bit broken. But a really interesting idea. There has been another idea of a corp that can look through the discard pile and buy cards once per gen, like randomly draw cards from the discard pile and then buy some of them. But that would make cutting cards in the draft impossible, which I think is not healthy for the game. But yeah, interesting idea. I think a bit broken. Let's get to the next one. And I think this one is actually not broken. I just have a suggestion for it, but it's called Orcus Lambus, and it has a building tag, starts with 36 MC, 4 steel, and a plant prod. So similar to Ecoline, same amount of starting capital, also a bit of plant prod, but it has steel and a building tag, which differentiates it from it. And this steel also means that it isn't that poor, not as Ecoline. And its effect is that whenever it places a greenery, it gains 1 MC pro. Placing greeneries is really strong in the early to mid to late game. It's always great, and just making that better is always nice. I think the effect is a little bit too weak, because this corp is quite poor and it's not amazing at placing greeneries with just 1 plant prod. You really need to hope that you get a solid starting hand so that you can make use of this effect early on. And I think I would make it a little bit stronger. I'd say you could... I'm kind of inspired by the Martian Lumber Corp, which is one of the promo cards introduced by the Prelude 2 expansion and the Kickstarter campaign, where you can, where the idea is basically that when playing building tags, you can use plants at 3 MC. So basically you turn plants into steel or into building material. And same idea here, I would say instead of getting 1 MC prod, you get 1 steel prod, which makes it really similar to Mining Guild. And I think it's still not strong enough, or it could be strong enough, but you could also give it 1 steel prod and 1 instant MC. I think that would make this corp a little bit more interesting and make this thematically fit a bit more with the building tag and the steel prod. I think this would work out a little bit better and make this a real powerhouse. Like if you get a really good start with Mining Guild, you can get like 6, 7, 8 steel prod really fast, and with Orcus Lumbers you could do the same. You could also make it like you get 1 MC prod and 2 MC, instant MC. That's also an idea that I had. I just think you could make this corp a little bit stronger, but I really like the idea. I like the combination of building tech, steel, and then plants and plant prot. I, for example, really like Recyclone as well, which works a little bit like that, where you play building techs to get plant prot. Really enjoy that one. And I really also enjoy the concept of Martian Lumber Corp. I just think it's not that strong. So yeah, I really love this corp. It's definitely more balanced than the first two. The first one was too weak, the second one was too strong, and I think this one is close to being balanced. The next one is Silver Lines, and I also really enjoy this one. I think it's balanced, and I think it's a fun concept. It starts with a science tech. I always like my science techs, so great one. Starts with 50 MC, and as your first action, you put 3 silver cubes on 3 tiles on Mars, and you instantly gain the resources on them. Immediately on Hellas, you can get the South Pole ocean, or in Elysium, you could get 3 cards, 3 plants, and 2 titanium. That's insane. On Tharsis, it's a little bit weaker, but you can still get 6 plants out of it if you want, or like 6 steel, I think. So that's immediately quite nice. And when a player places then a tile on these silver cubes, I guess they still get the placement bonus, and they also get 5 MC. So they just take the silver cube to their bank, I guess. And you have to be careful with that because other players can also get that. So this corporation is strongest if you have special tiles in your hand that you can immediately place. Something like Nuke Zone, Natural Preserve, Restricted Area, Mining Area, and so on. That works really well with that. And also gives this corp risk to playing it. If someone plays Tharsis, he can immediately place a city on the silver cube and fuck you up. So I really like the concept. I think this is really nice. The only downside to it is that this corp doesn't really have anything ongoing during the game because this effect is instant, and as soon as the 3 tiles are covered, this corporation basically has no ability anymore, which I think is a little bit sad. On the fly, I can't really think of one that works together with this concept, but this alone I think is quite interesting. Maybe you could give it a little steel as well to start off with to make it a little bit more strong. But 50 MC and this the starting capital from, or the starting resources from these 3 cubes is already quite high starting capital, so I think it's fine. If you think about it, like Polyphemus, I mean, yeah, it has something that you have to keep in mind all game because you always pay more for the cards, but the good thing about the corporation is also just the starting capital and the production. But yeah, that corp is stupid anyways. But yeah, really enjoy the concept. But let's get to the next one. And yeah, this is also a really nice idea, and I have one suggestion for it as well. But let's talk about how it is first. It has a building tech it's called Titans. Good name, by the way. Has 38 MC starting capital, 1 steel prot, 5 steel. And its effect is that when any ocean tile is placed on Mars, you have to convert all your steel resources into titanium resources. Of course, theoretically, this is a net positive because titanium is worth more than steel. Except maybe if you have Regoplastics down, then this effect can really annoy you because titanium is worth the same as steel. The problem is it's only theoretically a net positive. Maybe you have a few building techs on hand and really want to use your steel on them, and then another player places an ocean, and you have to convert all your steel resources into titanium. So again, there's a risk to it, to playing this corp. But similar to Pharmacy Union, if you have something about your corp that you can't control yourself, or wants insurance, for example, then you make plans maybe at the start of the gen or maybe even the gen before, and you calculate all your cards, your resources, can you play them, and then someone else fucks you up and your plan doesn't work anymore. And same with this corp. So my suggestion, just to make this corp less frustrating and more fun to play, is just add a may. You may convert all your steel resources into titanium resources. And I would still keep the all. So you cannot decide, I want to convert only 2 of my 5 steel into titanium. You have to decide either to convert none of it or all of it. And I think that's a good compromise. And if that's the case, then I think this corp is perfectly balanced. Its effect basically is income, because every time it gets triggered, your steel is then titanium and worth more. But it has a twist to it. It doesn't have too high starting capital. I like the synergy between the steel prod and the building tag, and then the name and the titanium. I think this is a really cool concept. But again, I would just change this to you may convert all your steel resources into titanium resources, just to reduce the frustration of the corp, of playing this corp. And then I think this is perfect. I really like the idea. Let's get to the last. I think the last corp that he made, and this one is really busted. Yeah, Wincom. Okay, starts with 27 MC, an Earth tag, 3 MC prod, and basically the effect is that your MC prod is worth double the amount. So if you have 3 MC prod during the production phase, this 3 MC prod will generate 6 MC. This is just busted. Think about playing a quiet company. Instead of giving you 3 MC prod, it's giving you 6 MC prod. And the only difference is that it's still worth only 3 MC prod for specialists, for example. But in all intents and purposes, otherwise, it's 6 MC prod. And this is just too broken. I saw an idea of a corp a while back on Reddit that said whenever you increase your MC prod by any amount, increase it by 1 more. And I think that one is much more balanced, because something like a quiet company is now giving you 4 MC prod instead of 3, and not 6 MC prod instead of 3. And also there's cards like Cartel. If you can play like if you play Wincom, you get just think about it. You play Wincom, you get Allied Banks and Business Empire as your preludes. You play a quiet company and Cartel. How much is that? 10, 13, 16, and then another 4. So 20 MC prod, I think. And suddenly you have 40 MC prod because of this ability. And this is not even too unrealistic. I had so many games where I got like both of these preludes and Cartel or something like that. So it's not like this happens only like 1 out of 50 games. It happens regularly that you get a lot of MC prod. And this is just too busted. It's crazy. I mean, this corp has relatively low starting capital, but not even like crazy low. Like you can still pick up like 3, 4 cards and play one of them. So this is just too busted. No way this would work in the game. I can tell you 100% this is too strong. But I mean, and you can, as I said, you can play around with MC prod. The idea of this other corp that just increases your MC prod 1 more every time you increase it is still strong, but it's not insane. If you give it relatively low starting capital and like maybe no tag, then that still works. And in the mid to late game, it's not even that great anymore, because you won't be playing a lot of MC prod in the mid to late game anymore. So if you're unlucky and you don't run into a lot of MC prod cards at the start, then that corp wouldn't be that great. But this Wincom corp, just too busted. But next up, we get to the last card of today's video, and it's made by a different creator called Sunkain. Let's take a look at it. It's called Biometal Ink. It's really, really creative. It has a science tag on it, which fits the effect that we will later talk about. It has 40 starting capital, so average or below average, and 3 MC prod. And the effect is really cool. Whenever you play microbe or an animal tag, you gain 1 titanium. That's not too strong because you're not playing a lot of these tags, and there's only a really limited amount of animal tags in the game, if you think about it. And microbe tags are often not that great. So this effect immediately is not that strong. But the second effect is really, really cool because it gives you card draw, but it's also not too strong because of how rare and sometimes bad these tags are. Because whenever you play a space card, which combos with this one, you reveal the top 3 cards, and if you get lucky and there's an animal or microbe tag between these 3 cards, you can buy these and you discard then the rest. And you can, if you get really lucky and all of these are microbe or animal tags, you can buy all 3 of them, but you have to buy them, so it's not broken or anything. And you can keep them on hand. And this works perfectly together because then you have new cards to get titanium with, and then you have new titanium to play space tags. And the flavor text of it says that this corp has found a way to genetically modify living organisms to turn them into something like titanium, which then makes then the effect makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I just love this idea. I would love to play with it. It's kind of complicated, so I can't really say if this is too strong. But as I said, animal tags are really rare, and mostly they are quite strong, but really rare. And microbe tags are also kind of rare, and some microbes are also not too great. So I don't think this would be busted or too strong. And I just love the concept. I would love to play with this. So maybe I have to print it out and play around with this. But yeah, these were all the cards I wanted to talk about in today's video, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And as always, I've linked all the posts where I found these cards down below. So check them out, give them an upvote, and these creators have also made different custom cards, so check those out as well. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.